So I am going to change the context in which we have discussed so far. The most beautiful aspect of this book was when I read that he was discussing his father and took out that extraordinariness in the very simple ways in which he gave his lessons to Shiv Shankar Ji, and he made him that extraordinary son. In very simple, ordinary things which are done with sincerity, which are done with purpose, which are done with meaning, makes you extraordinary. So friends, here is a message that extraordinariness is not about some effort. You don't have to become extraordinary, because in whichever social media you just press your button, there emerges another robot on the other side starting to suggest you the next video which will hold you there. That your desire changes your will, and your will change your behavior, and your behavior will change your action. It's a great honor for me to actually be present where my younger sister Deepa ji is here. And she is in fact an embodiment of extraordinariness. Not by whatever she has achieved, but by being human, by being very ordinary, and yet in her achievements very extraordinary. So I am going to change the context in which we have discussed so far. Pardon me, I'll speak a bit in English and I'll then kind of, come and mix it up together. When I was asked, in fact, by Shiv Shankar Ji to give a foreword to this book, let me start with the fact that I was not there to congratulate him for that. And I have a confession to make. And you know what that confession was? That, oh my God, there is yet another self-help book coming up. Shiv, have you really thought through you should be writing this book? Because, ladies and gentlemen, you just go across any of the bookshelves in any airport across the world, you will find a lot of self-help books. 5 ways to win money, 6 habits to change the world, and I thought that probably this would be how to be an ordinary next Monday. And I thought that's not going to work. But then when I read the manuscript, I thought that no, it wasn't. This was a book about celebrating the ordinary in an extraordinary way. And therefore the foreword that I wrote was in that context. You all have heard such beautiful people speaking before me that I have very little to say about the book. And you were really very, very gloriously poetic and really, talked about the context in which people get their inspiration. Human beings are to get inspiration from within so that it stays from without. It does not require an external prop. So my context here is discussing the book.
To Shiv Shankar Ji when we were discussing the book.
No.
That to be human is ordinary.
And I tell you the context. Because in this world, there is so much of noise. There is so much of distraction. And then he talked about his father. The most beautiful aspect of this book was when I read that he was discussing his father and took out that extraordinariness in the very simple ways in which he gave his lessons to Shiv Shankar Ji, and he made him that extraordinary son. And you know what he talked about? He talks about the fact that he would get up at 4 o'clock without the alarm, the discipline he infused in him, in very simple, ordinary things which are done with sincerity, which are done with purpose, which are done with meaning, makes you extraordinary. So friends, here is a message that extraordinariness is not about some effort. You don't have to become extraordinary. Now that's another contrary view of this book. You don't have to become extraordinary. There is nothing to be extraordinary. We are already extraordinary. Being human is being extraordinary. And I'll tell you why now. He talks in the book about the use of money, the materialist beings that he talks about. And he says that, well, material means take you to a point. But then what happens? You require the utter futility of money taking you beyond a point. It gives you the comfort, but extraordinaryness lies in all the efforts facing the challenges that we just heard this poet talk about. So that's the other aspect of it. You have money, but that's not making you extraordinary. His father was not among the 500 Forbes. His father never gave a TED talk, and his vice never went viral. But he is extraordinary because of his discipline, because of his sincerity, because of his truthfulness. And there lies, when I was there, I was looking at the picture. It reminded me of that fact that we discussed. And I found extraordinariness lies here. And that is why we all are here to celebrate. And Shiv Shankar ji, you owe a lot to him. You have taken him, made him proud, and he would be the happiest person today if he was alive. So then the other aspect that I found in the book was that it's about mindset. He talks about digital Mahakumbh. This is a world where digital or digitization is at extreme. Technology is exponentially changing. And when technology changes exponentially, it becomes super intelligent. The way we see, you know what we lose? We lose because it's exponential. We are never able to match the human wisdom to make sense. Sense making is lost. So today, you know, the biggest challenge before humans to remain human is that wisdom gap. So we have to address that wisdom for which we are humans. Left part of the brain is the logical brain. Scientific brain, that is important. But the right part of the brain, the creative part, the parallel thinking process, the one which makes you creative, critical solving skills and complex problem solving skills capability is what makes you extraordinary. Remain human, but we are not. Because of what happens with social media. Social media was the first brush with AI. Not this AI that ChatGPT brought in 2023. You know why? Because in whichever social media you just press your button, there emerges another robot on the other side, starting to suggest you the next video which will hold you there. Your attention. It's grabbing your attention because of the perverse financial incentives that these big platforms have. Facebook, Google and others, you know, they were all meant to give you knowledge, give you friends, give back all that you had lost as friends, friendship for years. And that was a very good motive, and that is true. It did do that. But what it also did was created a context in which there was a shortening of our attention span. There is polarization in society. There is a context of outrage. There is a whole post-truth world. There is what you call a whole fake sentiment, fake emotions, synthetic concept of life that we are living. That was not to be. But that's exactly was the misalignment in which we all were finding ourselves when Corona came. And then to add it all, what came was this ChatGPT, the artificial intelligence, the LLM. And do you know what they did? These misalignment society में already थे. Shortening attention span, polarization, outrage, fake news, post-truth world. अब आ गई AI जो कि seek कर रही है आपकी intimacy. The platforms of social media were seeking your attention. They were all competing to grab your attention. It was an attention and a surveillance economy and a society जिसमें हम humans अपना wisdom खो रहे थे. Because Amazons and others make you buy things that you don't need. They make you buy things that you don't need with the money you will always have less of, and to impress those who just don't matter to you in life. That is the contradiction. And we do it very happily. That is what has taken the human wisdom out of us. It has taken our humanity. तो अब आ गई AI. तो AI ने क्या किया? Intimacy seek करने लगी. And what is intimacy? It becomes your friend. And that is what Shiv Shankar ji has actually addressed when he calls the digital Mahakumbh, where you have to use your left part of the brain, scientific temper and humanism put together. Because AI ने क्या किया? आपका friend बन गया. 24/7 is available to you. You are so dependent on AI. अगर एक छोटी सी email भी भेजनी है, तो आपने AI को use करना शुरू किया. आपको एक love letter भी लिखना है, तो आप उससे idea seek कर रहे हैं. That's the limit. But the friends, you know, the biggest negative aspect of this is, the more and more you will give it to the AI, outsource it, it will grab it, it will make you less and less wiser. love, compassion, if you outsource, less of love and compassion you will have. You will cease to be extraordinary that you are as a human being. You will become lesser than what you are. You will cease to become, from extraordinary, you will become very, very, very ordinary. That is another way to look at this book. And this is the beauty. Because when I was reading this book, remember that today the biggest challenge before us is to become and remain more human. Because you cannot compete with technology when the IQ of technology is already that of more than 150 to 160, which is more than the average. I mean, maybe not just the average. The highest person's IQ today, Elon Musk, is about 150 to 160. This is much more than that, and soon it will become millions and billions of times more. Soon means in months and years, not decades. What is going to happen to our wisdom? How will we tackle this technology? Well, this is not the forum and this is not the occasion when we are discussing book and when we are discussing the book written so beautifully by him to discuss this issue. But a point needs to be mentioned that if you have to actually understand this extraordinariness mentioned in the book, we have to retain our humanity. We have to retain our humanism. Wisdom is important because you know why? AI, technology will give you data, information and knowledge. But wisdom and insight and foresight and hindsight is something that only humans can have. So my message of this book was that retain your humanity, become more human. And that's the way to face this challenge, to retain your extraordinariness. Don't lose your humanity. Don't lose your love, compassion and passion. Don't get burdened by the past. Get the benefit of it. Never, never hold yourself back by the fear of failure, fear of what others will say, and your own cynicism around things that will not happen. Friends, to end, I am reminded of 3 contexts. One of what Yuval Noah Harari thought similarly around this book and the concept. And there's a famous, in fact, management guru called Drucker, who also thought similarly. And ultimately, Vedanta is talking about 3 things separately, but they mean the same. Let's start with Harari. He said that we make the civilization the way we create our stories. Whatever stories you will make you ordinary or extraordinary. You will retain your extraordinariness, as I say. And that will create a civilization. Peter Drucker also said the same thing, that there is no point to try to solving your current problems using your old mindset. You cannot be using a 20th century mindset to solve the problems of 21st century. You will lose your extraordinariness. अब वेदांत ने भी यही बात कही है, that our extraordinariness is never in question except for ignorance about its luminosity. Aham brahmasmi tat tvam asi ayam atma brahma. And all these Mahavakyas have said the same thing, that we are ultimately extraordinary, being human. Remove this ignorance that we are this body and mind. And therefore this reflection of the same sentiment is there in this book, which I really say is basically something that is written in Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, particularly some 5,000 years back. And you know what it was? You'll be surprised to find that that sentiment he has captured so beautifully, which is otherwise mentioned in Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, that your desire changes your will, and your will change your behavior, and your behavior will change your action. That is, if you want to become extraordinary, you start with willing, believing yourself. Then your actions will come, and your actions will then result in being extraordinary or retaining your extraordinariness. So, ladies and gentlemen, the context of today is that we have lost touch with giving answers. Wisdom does not lie in having answers today. Wisdom lies in asking the relevant questions. Am I living an extraordinary life the way I'm supposed to be or not? If you, audience, would leave with this question in your mind, whether I am being extraordinary that I am, and answering to this question cannot be Googled, by the way. You cannot Google the answer of this question. You have to find it yourself. So wishing you all the best of best for this journey of seeking yourself, seeking that extraordinariness that will be doing justice to this book. Once again, congratulating you. I started with a confession about whether this is a self-help book. No, it's a self-help book in some sense, but a very limited way. It is more importantly help others.
Right.